Hello, it's me again. So we're going to be doing a short video to talk a little bit about some of the other aspects of this project. But first, what have we already talked about? So in class, we've talked about what the project is, as well as what it isn't. We went through information regarding the presentation itself, whether it was going to be a video or a face-to-face presentation. I made a video on how to shoot a lesson. For this one, this applies to everybody, whether you're doing a video or a face-to-face presentation. This is all about the other graded aspects, the lesson plan, the related homework, peer assessments, okay? So let's start with the lesson plan. Now, sometimes I also call this a unit plan because you'll see some of the questions are just a bit more broad in scope. So your lesson plan is typically about 2 to 3 pages. You want to answer all the prompts that are provided. Make sure that you thoroughly answer all aspects of the questions. And I have provided some samples on Blackboard. These are samples where students got an A on them. So if you want to take a look at what I'm expecting, that can be helpful. So again, if you go onto our Blackboard site, and again, this is an older screenshot, but it shows you what you're going to be able to find. Go to the info on the lesson plan and everything will be there. So I'm going to go through the questions that make up the lesson plan. And again, sometimes I call it a unit plan. The first question is, what are the objectives for student learning during this lesson? So what do you want the students to learn? I am going to be looking to make sure that these are written correctly based upon what we've covered in class regarding writing learning objectives. I've also put that on the Blackboard site, so there's a little handout on there if you need a refresher regarding writing learning objectives. And on the green slides for today's video, you're going to see a sample answer. I won't be reading verbatim the sample answer, but this is just to give you an idea of what your answer might look like, the amount, and so on. So for number 1, since the lesson you'll be teaching is between 10 and 15 minutes, I would only expect there to be somewhere between 2 and 4 learning objectives. And again, they need to be written correctly. All right, the second question. This question is a bit more longer and in more detail. Based on their grade and age, how would you describe the student's cognitive, psychosocial, and moral development? And here I want you to refer to Piaget, Erikson's, Kohlberg stages, and any other developmental considerations. So my hint is, this is from Unit 1. Remember, Unit 1 is all about describing and understanding your students. So for number 2, Part A is describe your students to me. And so here's what I'm talking about. Think about where would they be on our various stage theories. You might want to refer to their self-esteem, anything else that would be relevant to that age group. Here is a sample answer. You can see in this particular sample lesson plan from a student from a previous semester that they, did it in bullet points and they went through each area. Now, question 2 has a Part A and a Part B. That was Part A. Part B says, what instructional decisions did you make based upon your student's development? So, how might your lesson or your teaching approach be affected or altered based upon the student's age and or development? Because remember, what's the point in understanding who your students are and where they are developmentally, unless in turn that is going to affect how you would be teaching them? Think about all the times that we've talked about developmental issues, and then I related that to teaching tips, right? So here is, again, just a sample answer. This one, to be honest, is a bit brief. But so if you say the students are in concrete operations, how might that affect your teaching decision? If they are in Erikson's identity versus role confusion stage, how might that affect things that you do in the classroom? This is also one of those unit type questions where you don't have to be referring to just your 10 to 15 minute lesson. You can think more broadly. Question 3. Describe which learning theories connect to your instructional methods. So now we're talking about Unit 2. Okay, Unit 2 is all of our learning theories. Now in Blackboard, I do have a document there called Theory Chart that goes through all of our theories and helps to connect them to instructional strategies. So here I want to see things like constructivism, social constructivism, possibly social cognitive theory if you plan on doing any demonstrating or modeling. If you are talking about giving rewards or having competition, then you need to mention operant conditioning and so on. Question 4. How would you, in a real classroom, motivate your students, both intrinsically and extrinsically? How would you engage them? So this relates to a chapter we have coming up on motivation. And you can see this is a bit of a two-part question. So how are you going to motivate them? And I do want to see intrinsically and extrinsically. And that idea of engagement is, how would you get them to interact, to perhaps engage in active learning? And here's a sample question. I'm sorry, a sample answer. So you see this one might be a couple of paragraphs. Number 5, how would you evaluate or assess whether the students learned what you intended for them to learn? In other words, how will you know if they have met the learning goals? This is also a unit-based question, meaning you only have 10 to 15 minutes. You may not assess us during that time. But here you could talk about something that might be coming up in the future, that perhaps this would be leading up to an exam or a project or a paper. All right, some other details related to grading. First of all, you are going to get 10 points for providing feedback to your peers. You can choose how to do this. One way you can do it is by attending class for 2 days when we do these face-to-face presentations and just simply serving as an audience member. I will probably also have slips of paper at the desk where you can provide some anonymous positive feedback. So just come to class any 2 days that we are presenting. So let's say, for instance, you're in my 10:45 a.m. class. And maybe we don't have any or many presentations. You're welcome to come to another class. So any 2 sections, your section or even another section, sit in class, provide some anonymous feedback, check, you've got your 10 points. Or you can view 3 videos from the discussion forum and write constructive positive feedback online, and then I can check and see that. Another related part of this project is a follow-up homework called a reflective practice homework. Here's where you're going to have a few questions that you will answer individually, not as a group, to reflect on the project and how it went. Strengths, weaknesses, anything you might change to make it different. Here you can see it's pretty basic. It's actually 4 or 5 questions. I might have gotten rid of one of these. And you can write it question answer. Really, each question might only need a sentence or 2 to answer it. It can be brief. And here, even though this says 1 copy per group, this is actually an old screenshot. I do want this to be individual, and I will make sure it says that on Blackboard. So the last thing I want to point out is the grading rubric, but I'm not going to spend time on it here because we will be doing that as a whole separate lesson when I go through the grading rubric step by step and provide you with examples. So that's it for now, and I hope this was helpful. Thank you.